got to tell you, I find it hard to digest when I suddenly read that the latest census figures show that 46 million people are living in poverty in the United States. That's more than the entire population of Spain. 46 million people. That's the largest number of poor people living in the U.S. in my lifetime. So the question becomes, do Main Street ideas like these address a problem this big? That question brings me to Bellingham, Washington, and the fresh air and clear water of an island called Lummi. With a population of under 1,000, Lummi Island is 6 minutes by ferry from Bellingham. Salmon fishing was the staple of Native Americans from this area, and it's a thriving business now. Travel pretty far to find a fish that's going to taste better than that.
These are the best fish in the world. You can't do a better job than we do on these salmon.
Oh, pull, boys!
Riley Starks is a shareholder in this local venture called Lummi Island Wild, one of the greenest salmon fisheries in America. Using a process called reef netting to drop and lift nets into the current with solar-powered winches and old-fashioned human brawn.
So we have an array of 8 solar panels here that senses the charge level of the battery bank that we have that runs each individual winch.
Huge school coming in, coming in.
I mean, that's what's so exciting about being part of this local living economies movement. If we're working with local workers, employing local people, and thereby also creating more customers for the salmon. You know, I think we're seeing a growth in consumer awareness that it really does make a difference, not only in terms of the ultimate health of the food, but in terms of long-term viability.
People want to know where their food comes from. They want to know as much as they can about the food that's on their plate.
Some of that catch has a truly local destination, Willow's Inn, Riley's restaurant and lodging. He's got a world-class chef and a fish with a backstory that makes it valuable to customers. But this is more than a fishtail. Sustainable businesses aim to create livelihoods, jobs. The inn and fishery are part of a broader effort to do just that. Remember the business alliance group called Bali back in Santa Fe? Bellingham is where the national network is based. The local chapter here, with 600 members, is called Sustainable Connections.
This is the real economy. These are, our members are manufacturers and construction workers, they are farmers, they are retailers, they want they need to have profitable businesses to stay in business.
Members are united by a single idea. What can they do that's in their community's long-term best interest? There's a motto to live by. It's about jobs and the environment, favoring local over distant in buying and other transactions.
What we're building is a relationship economy. The accountability that comes from a relationship with another person, as opposed to a one-night stand economy where we don't have the accountability. If you think about it, today we don't know where our food comes from when it ends up on our plate, and what kind of impact it's had along the way. We don't know where our waste goes when we're done with that meal. When you put your money in a mutual fund, you don't know the impact of that money circulating and where it's going, so we want to reconnect farmers with eaters, investors with entrepreneurs and businesses with the communities, with the ecosystems that they serve, have a relationship.
And we need to shift that locus of power down to the community level. The financial markets recognize only money and thereby only financial values. If you're living in the community and you own your local businesses and you're engaged in the local economy, you have a definite interest in the strength and health of your community. So there's a natural connection between how you make your financial decisions, how you operate your enterprise, and the broader public interest, none of which exists when the power resides in Wall Street.
Shifting the power to Main Street can bring with it a longer-term view. Customers who get it and businesses who get it are part of this. There's also a role for local government.
The business community has come to understand that you can't talk about doing business without understanding how that impacts society, how it impacts the community both environmentally and socially. And I think Bellingham's a place that does get that.
One fella who lives down the coast gets that too, with some surprising ideas for economizing in the new economy. Whoa, check it out. What is he pulling? Here's another trend picking up steam across the country, the tiny house movement, getting a lot out of less, in this case, less space.
Oh, I love small spaces.
All right, well look, you needed a little place for your head. I gotta say, this looks disturbingly like a CAT scan machine.
So it's a bed, kitchen, it folds up into a chair, and a little table comes down. There we go. There goes the toilet. This is the comfy position.
Can I try it?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's comfy. It certainly gives you a fine view. We have a little bit of solar power. Now, for many of you, this is the nightmare of where our sustainable economy will be headed. You'll be living in a tube on a street corner in downtown Bellingham. But the point of a small dwelling like this is to ask a very interesting question. The question is, how much do we really need to live? How much do we really need for shelter? How much do we really need in terms of stuff? If I had been an eighth of an inch taller, I wouldn't have made it in here. Of course, I'm going to need to get a sustainable chiropractor to sort out my back after that experience. But no fooling around. How can local and sustainable play out in a real manufacturing company, trying to make a real profit from a real product? Can these efforts work? By work, I mean create good new jobs. Before I leave Bellingham, I stop over at a bona fide factory to find out just that. It's about making pizza, something else I've been on a lifelong quest to perfect. But the product isn't the pizza. Woodstone made their first industrial-strength oven 22 years ago. They've now sold more than 9,000 ovens in 75 countries. Instead of shipping jobs to China, they found a way to ship American ovens. Woodstone had the chance to get parts made cheaply in far-off Asia, but the boss, Keith Carpenter, is part of Sustainable Connections, which got him thinking hard about ways to bring more jobs to the place where he himself lives. His solution started, paradoxically, with robots. Robots imported from Finland did some of the work, but 40 human beings were also needed, meaning 40 new local jobs in the middle of a recession. Not just low-wage, stockroom sort of jobs, but higher-tech computer jobs where playing video games turns out to be a valuable skill. Anything connected to manufacturing is a pretty competitive business. Are you able to pay a living wage for people who work here?
If there's one thing that I think we're most proud of at Woodstone, that 90 people show up here every day and are able to make a living, and they're buying houses and they're sending their kids to college and they're having new families, and it's worth all the work. They want to go home at night and feel good about what we did. And Woodstone has the potential to bring a very comfortable life to hundreds of people.
It's tough to prove cause and effect, but the unemployment rate in all of Bellingham did drop well below state and national averages in the 10 years since Sustainable Connections got started. I mean, we've been through a really bad stretch, and many of the assumptions that went into the way that financial markets worked in recent years have been shown to be flawed. But you still have faith that with changes, it could be optimized?
Yeah, I think the worst thing we could do would be to actually throw out capitalism. I think the second worst thing we could do would be to actually fail to reform it. I think had it been run in the interests of long-term progress, long-term wealth creation, many of these problems, like funding all sorts of mortgages that shouldn't have been funded, those problems wouldn't have occurred. And so the challenge we face is how do we reorientate capitalism and the financial markets to make them more long-term focused, not let's put it back in a box.